continue to be in the Chinese market?
Well, I'm not a Chinese expert, and so I, to some extent, want to defer to people that know much more about it than I do. But I mean, the recent figures show that between 2020 and 2022, the share of global car makers in the Chinese market fell from 60% to 40%. Sales of foreign company EVs are very low. So in a sense, I think the market's already been lost. Because if you think that in the world, incumbents are trying to keep up, trying to face the Chinese challenge, well, that's a big challenge in itself. And if you've already lost a large amount of market share, and these Chinese companies in China are probably, in a sense, as being the domestic producers, are in a stronger position than they are competing against the incumbents in the rest of the world, then the situation looks pretty bleak, if you're an incumbent. And so I think that maybe the battle's already been lost. On the question of incumbent shares of global value added in 2035, I'm finding it difficult to make predictions about 2025. And certainly the predictions I would have made about the end of 2024 6 months ago, we're starting to revise, and so I have to say I just don't think it's worth me offering a guess on that. So that's very brief.
Okay, thank you very much. So if Tommaso says it's okay, I would like to open the discussion to the audience, at least to some questions.
Let's take 1/4 of an hour, so we collect some questions, and then you answer briefly, and then we keep discussing at the lunch break. That's fine?
You need to stop at 1 p.m. because after the traitor will leave. So if you want to...
So other questions? Tommaso?
Yes, we see in the United States and Europe an increasing divide between the price of a new car and the price of the average car that is bought by everybody on the second-hand market. Even the price of second-hand market is going up, but clearly there is an increasing divide by the car that everybody, the average household use, which is older, with less technology, and it takes people from A to B. And what the car makers are putting forward in the market, that has been these cars that becomes heavier, more powerful, and more expensive. And is that a barrier to the development of this case technology? At a certain point of time, when you try to pack the car with so many computers, with so many new technology, on the top of that you add 500 kilograms of battery because you want to give 600 kilometers of autonomy, you end up with a car that becomes impossible to sell. And this relates to another question, that I agree with many things that Elmar Pritsch said to us from the perspective of a tech company, but I don't agree that it's easier to make a car today than a smartphone. And for one simple reason, is that a smartphone still, I mean, if you look at the price by kilos, which is a funny way I used to use that, still a smartphone goes from, I don't know, 2,000 euros per kilograms to 500 euros per kilograms. A car, even one of the most expensive one, is between 25 to 50 euros per kilograms. So that means that it's very difficult for car makers to make a profit, because actually it's very cheap when you consider by comparison with other technology. And I think that I agree with John Paul that it's so difficult for companies, even Tesla. I'm not sure that it's yet making money in making cars, despite it has reached this huge scale, it has been very successful, and most of the money came from credits and the fact of being able to sell it. So it's very difficult to make cars because they're integral products, because they're so complex. I think that still matters in our story, and making cheaper cars for electrification is becoming extremely important. If we want to decarbonize transport, we need to distribute these cars to everybody, and very fast. So is the need for electrification eventually also killing, to a certain extent, these ambitions to go to autonomous cars, because the other one is so expensive that we need to make cheaper electric cars in a much faster pace.
Thank you for your presentations. I really learned a lot, and you made me think in many things. I really appreciate one. Thank you for your presentation and your insights. you made me think again how important is the national context and idiosyncrasies and how they account at the present moment. And in general, in your discussion, I miss large reflection about paradigms and the way that paradigms change. And I question you, all of you, are we on the middle of a paradigm shift? If that is the situation, can you tell us a little more how paradigms change across the time? Yeah. Basically.
Any other questions? Over here. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. When I was listening this discussion, I had the feeling that we were discussing a reality of probably 3/4 of the world, of the people, not the rest, because we have a lot of differences. So we are more or less discussing trips to the moon. I mean, it's a different reality. How can we include all those 3/4 on those kinds of technologies? Because we need to do that, and we know that is important, because we are ignoring an important part, which is the political one. All the reasoning were really related to industrial economics, but we also have the reasoning of people that are getting well aged. They are representing much more the part of the world, and they probably do not agree on a lot of things that we are discussing here. So I want you just to reflect on those points. Thank you.
Any other questions? So then I would like to ask the discussants to answer. I think you can just, who wants to start? Anna?
Yeah, maybe I start with the price point of cars being too expensive and going only in one direction up. I mean, there's one thing I think that you will never be able to stop, is that if you have technology progress, you cannot ignore it. It will happen. And the price points usually in the beginning are higher. I mean, I see so many computers in front of me now. I think 30 years ago we wouldn't be able to afford it. But now we do have many high-performance computers on our desk just in front of us. We have some in our pockets as well. Maybe even this is a good example for leapfrogging, because I think the smartphone industry has shown that, for instance, in Africa, we can bypass and we can be much more closer to modern financial transactions without any cash than we were in Europe, because we could really learn from Africa how new technologies can bypass and overcome hurdles in order to become more convenient as a solution. So I think it's a paradigm shift. It's dramatic, but I'm always a very optimistic person. Technology can be used for two reasons: to the good of mankind or to the bad of mankind. I'm always believing that we will use technology in order to improve our lives, to save lives, and to make us happier. So I believe we will see this paradigm shift to the better. And maybe to one final remark, also addressing the cost and prices. We have spent so much inefficiently on R&D in the automotive sector, if we are honest. So it's not only about subsidizing, it's also that we wasted a lot of resources. I think it's about leadership, transformation, bringing the right resources to the right ideas, and then we will see that the prices will go down as well.
Hua, do you want to?
Okay.
Running?
To answer your questions, in fact, those two questions, I do see that a word is polarized.